Everybody ready? All right, I'm seeing a thumbs up. Good morning, excuse me, to the October Veterinary Medical Board meeting. Since it's 10 o'clock, we will begin. I will turn to Jessica to call the roll.
Ms. Buller?
Here.
Dr. Bradbury?
Here.
Ms. Laredo?
Here.
Dr. Noland?
Here.
Ms. Prado? Ms. Prado is absent. Dr. Solicito? Dr. Solicito is absent. Ms. Berber?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Could I ask our tech folks, can we put the board members up on the monitor that are virtual? Is that possible?
This is moderated. Let me check. I have it.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yes, I have it set to show the current speaker.
It's just easier to tell when people need to speak, etc.
Sure.
I'm
looking for their video. I'm not seeing it across the top of my screen, so I don't know.
Their video is on.
It is on. Okay.
Yeah. And they were able to do this yesterday with the MDC members.
Maybe I should get on. Here. Okay, so Jennifer's.
I'm sorry, I'm still looking for them. You know, I will consult with my colleagues offline and get that taken care of.
Okay.
Okay.
We can just continue.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Gosh, excuse me. Got a little allergy situation going on here. So the first item on the agenda, excuse me, is public comments for items not on the agenda. And before we move to that, I just want to repeat what I've said before, to remind individuals making public comments, excuse me, not to discuss pending complaints, pending licensee applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may later come before the board for a decision. As I've said before, such discussions can be considered ex parte communications, and it could provide information to the members that's outside of the record, which would be in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. Such discussions could also create a conflict and lead to the board discussion being challenged in court. We can, of course, the board can, of course, receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it can't receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Always outside of this meeting, the board staff is available to speak to you about pending matter. Excuse me. In the interest of time, as we've done in the past, would remind members of the public that where's my point here? Not to repeat statements that have already been made by a prior commenter, if you can. If you're already in support of that statement and it's completely been made, and please just state your name and association and your support for the previous commenter. We'll allow 3 minutes for public comment, and I would like to open it up to members in the audience today, here in the room first before we go to those online. Anybody have in the room? I'm seeing no one come to the table. All right, moderator, I think you can open it to those online. And again, this is public comments on items not on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the queue. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. You'll have a 3-minute time limit. I'll give you a 15-second warning. And I do see that Dr. Rick Arthur would like to make a comment. So Dr. Arthur, you should be able to speak. And Dr. Arthur, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Dr. Rick Arthur. I've been licensed by the California Veterinary Medical Board since 1976. I practiced 30 years on the Southern California Thoroughbred Racing Circuit. And then for the next 15 years, I was equine medical director at the University of California at Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, where I was assigned to advise the California Horse Racing Board. By law, the equine medical director is appointed by the dean and is the primary advisor to the California Horse Racing Board on drug testing, horse welfare and safety, and the practice of veterinary medicine within their enclosures. Throughout my veterinary career and up to today, I was and still am active in numerous veterinary professional organizations, including serving as president of the American Association of Equine Practitioners. I'm still active advising governmental and non-governmental entities regulating and advancing horse health veterinary care in California, nationally and internationally. I've spoken before to this board about what are clearly politically motivated attacks on equine veterinarians, including some of the leading, most highly respected veterinarians in the country. Some are veterinarians who have advanced high-quality veterinary care much more than any of you associated with the California Veterinary Medical Board will ever hope to accomplish. This board's actions are nothing short of regulatory extortion. The irony in all this is that racetrack veterinarians know their patients better than most any other veterinary practitioner. From my extensive experience in organizations, I know there are two types of boards. Those where the board controls the organization and staff, and those where the staff controls the organization and board. This board is clearly the latter. There will come a time when each of you, particularly the veterinary professionals on the board, will need to face your failure to lead. In the end, this is Governor Newsom's failure, Secretary Castro Ramirez's failure, and DCA heads Kirchmeyer's failure because the Veterinary Medical Board's attacks on equine veterinarians is nothing short of regulatory abuse by an ambitious and misguided staff. If the governor and BCSH and DCA don't investigate the Veterinary Medical Board, then the California legislature needs to get involved, and I'm working to have that happen. I am aware that culturally state government is loath to admit they screwed up, but this transgression by the Veterinary Medical Board should have been resolved a long time ago. Shame on all of you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, I see no more requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is the review and approval of our board minutes from the July meeting. And I had a couple of things that I found, and as always, they were really well done. And I'm sure other folks may have found a couple of things as well. I think this is right, but on page 7, Clavamox, I think is with an A. Right?
I'm looking at to see where it's at.
It's CLA, it's spelled with an I, and I think it's Clavamox.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm on page 7. It was in Anita's, Levy Hudson's, yeah. So that is in the middle of that. Got it? Okay, there you go. There was one more, my little guy. On page 21, again, a small typo, under where Grant Miller speaking, I think it's did not know, D-I-D. And that was all I found. All right, Dr. Bradbury. I wanted to welcome Diana Prado, is joining us.
Okay, so I just had on page 21 as well, Dr. Pulowski's statements, and I went back and listened to the meeting just to make sure I knew what he was saying there. Starting on the second line of page 21, it says, he said his vets, particularly the newer vets, are terrified of losing their license and half of the practice. period. What he said and seems like he meant was half of the practice they do is CYA, except then it goes on to say he claims what they do is CYA. So I think his statement just needs to be revised to reflect what he actually said at the meeting. So he said his vets, particularly the newer vets, are terrified of losing their license, and half of their practice is half of the practice they do is CYA. So,
Thank you. I also circled that and went, what does this mean? Thank you. Any other board members have any changes or revisions? I'm kind of looking at the screen here. Jennifer? Laredo?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I had the same two that you found. And then also on page 7, under Anita Levy-Hudson's comments, about halfway down the paragraph, it said she claims she did not know the last time a veterinarian supervised a person. I just think it should say she stated instead of she claimed.
Do you see that too?
Yeah.
Okay. Good catch. Thank you. Anyone else? Diana? Okay. All right. At this point, I think I'll open up for public comment on the minutes in July. And I see none in this room. So, moderator, would you mind opening up to online?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment.
Got it. Well, it shouldn't take long.
All right, I'm seeing no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I was so quick to go to public comment, I forgot to ask for a motion to adopt the minutes as revised, which I will ask for right now.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes as revised.
And do we have a second? I'm looking, Diane. Thank you. Thank you. And now, public comment once again. Sorry, guys. Don't come rushing to the stage right away. There's no one in this room, by the way, moderator. So again, you could go open online. I apologize for taking everybody's time.
No worries. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment, submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll wait a moment. All right, I see no requests. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And now we'll move to a vote.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Prado? Ms. Berber?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we'll move on, excuse me, to item 4 on the agenda, which is a report and update from the from DCA. And I would like to welcome Melissa Gear, who is our new Board and Bureau Relations Deputy Director, who will give us our report. Thank you very much. Sure, yeah. Those mics should be live. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Let me see. Do you have a green light on the bottom?
I do have a green light.
Okay. Speak closer, I think.
Okay. Hello and good morning, and thank you for having me here this morning to give a DCA update. So as President Bowler stated, I am Melissa Gear. I am the new Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations. I just started on October 3rd. And you guys will be my first DCA update, so I apologize if I'm a little nervous. But I did want to say a little bit about myself. Like I said, joined on October 3rd and bring a wealth of experience. I previously was a Chief Deputy Legislative Director at the Department of Insurance, and I've been there since 2014. Prior to that, I served also at the California State Teachers Retirement System, the California Attorney General's Office, and the Legislative Analyst's Office. And so I am so excited to be here to meet all of you and to assist you in any way possible as I learn more and moving forward. So with that, I have a couple of more updates that I'll share from you, and I apologize, I will be reading them, but I will try to get through them as quickly as possible. So the first one is our DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. Director Kimberly Kirkmeyer established the department's first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, or DEI committee, to guide the department in its equity strategy, initiatives, and action plans. The DEI committee will hold its official kickoff meeting November 9th, 2022. Next, we have strategic planning. In accordance with the Governor Newsom's executive order, strategic plans in effect July 2023 and beyond must be developed or updated to more effectively advance equity and drive outcomes that increase opportunity for all. In response, DCA is revising its strategic planning processes to incorporate more inclusive public engagement, data analysis, and embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, into the strategic planning process. Over the coming months, the DEI will begin implementing the revised processes and working with the boards in updating existing strategic plans or developing new strategic plans. Next, we have the Our Promise campaign. It's that time of year again. DCA is excited to take part in Our Promise California State Employees Giving at Work once more and celebrate 65 years of caring for Californians. This year, Our Promise Vice Chair is Lourdes Castro Ramirez, Secretary of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. And our very own DCA co-chairs are Chief Deputy Director Christine Lully and me, Deputy Director Melissa Gear. The campaign began on October 1st and will end on December 31st. The campaign allows Californians to donate to a nonprofit or nonprofits of their choice. With your assistance, DCA hopes to continue its tradition of generosity and caring for our communities through this year's campaign. Please assist us in spreading the word and encouraging all members and staff to make a one-time donation or donate online through Cal Employee Connect. California can be cared for as little as $5 per month. And so if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me and or Christine, and we can get you some additional information about how you might want to donate or contribute to our campaign. Next, we have in-person meeting guidelines and COVID-19 safety measures. Though legislation has passed allowing remote meetings through June 30th, 2023, we are reminding boards that choose to hold in-person meetings of the safety measures, best practices, and recommendations for holding public meetings. When planning for upcoming meetings, please remember all board and bureau members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply in the area where meetings are held. Face coverings are strongly recommended for all board members and staff at meetings. The California Department of Public Health strongly recommends that individuals continue to mask indoors in indoor settings. Please post face covering guidance signage at your meeting check-in or entrance. Next, board member travel. As travel begins to pick up, it is important to remember that state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's approved travel agency, Cal Travel Store, or Concur. All board, bureau members, and staff must use the most economical fares possible when traveling by air on official state business. Typically, this will be the Southwest Wanna Get Away option. However, there may be additional charges if changes are made to the flight. Flight changes to the date and time for personal convenience are not approved or a justified reason, and the traveler will be responsible for any associated charges. Additionally, AB 1887 prohibits state agencies, departments, boards, authorities, and commissions from traveling to states that are subject to California's travel ban. There are now 23 prohibited states. On the website of the Attorney General, you can review the entire list of those states. Lastly, partnership with the State Controller's Office. DCA will partner with the State Controller's Office, or SCO, to share information with consumers and certain licensees about the Unclaimed Property Program. State law requires banks, insurance companies, corporations, and other entities to report and submit their consumers' property to the CSO after a period of inactivity, generally 3 years. Certain DCA licensees will benefit from this partnership as it will educate them about their responsibility to report unclaimed property and assist with compliance. Additionally, the program is a great resource for all consumers to locate their unclaimed property. I can honestly say I've got a little bit of money there. And when we talked about this at our senior staff, there was actually somebody who also did a check of their name and had money there also, a bigger sum than I had, but nonetheless. So you might want to check that out. And so lastly, as I close, as always, DCA is here to help, and we are here for anything we can do to assist you, so please reach out. And that concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members have questions for Melissa? Looking at our table, and now I'm looking online. Yeah, Jennifer Laredo.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say welcome to Ms. Gear and thank you very much. And for your report, I was especially interested to hear about the DEI steering committee. I'm taking a DEI course right now, and I was actually invited to be on a speaking panel for women of color in STEM, but it was today, and unfortunately I'm here today. So I was really happy to hear about that. So thank you so much for your report and welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes, welcome and nice job. I was just wondering on the, you were talking about the donation, the Promise campaign, and is DCA matching contributions, or is it just we're encouraging people to contribute?
I'll have to get back to you on that, but I know for sure we are encouraging people, but I'll have to check on the match.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I do not see anyone else, but thank you very much. At this point, I think I'll open it to members of the public for any questions of Melissa in the room, and I see no members from the room. So, moderator, would you open the online?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the reminder. My husband's always looking at the controller's website, and we always find money that my brother has, but nothing that I have, unfortunately. So that is a valuable resource. It's amazing how many accounts you have over the years that turn up. Anyway, thank you very much. Great report. Excuse me. And now I think, gosh, I am so sorry, guys. Now I would like to call Dr. Richard Sullivan up to provide the MDC report. They had a very long, very, I thought, productive meeting yesterday. And thank you very much for all the work you guys do. I'll just start from the outset because it's so incredibly valuable.
Thank you. It was a good meeting. The first item I see is item 5A. Is that
Dr. Sullivan, can you move the mic closer to your mouth? Thank you.
the first item I see is 5A. Is that where you want to start?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a recommendation on legislative proposal to amend business and Professions Code, Section 4826.5, regarding veterinary compounding, veterinary drug compounding. Okay, Business and Professions Code, Section 4826.5 authorizes licensed veterinarians and registered veterinary technicians supervised by licensed veterinarians to compound drugs for animal use. This became law on January 1st, 2017. In accordance with this law, the Veterinary Medical Board developed drug compounding regulations, and those went into effect April 1st of this year. The board also amended California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2036, to authorize RVTs to perform drug compounding from bulk substances under direct supervision of a licensed veterinarian, and drug compounding from non-bulk substances under indirect supervision. The board felt that there needed to be educational material to help licensees comply with these regulations, especially since veterinarians have been doing simple compounding forever, and now they must follow these regulations to do it legally. At your last meeting, the MDC proposed and you approved a guidelines document as an example of compounding drug formula to doing the process. During the development of the educational material, the subcommittee, the MDC, and stakeholders found problems in the efficiency of the record-keeping requirements of these regulations. These included a large bottleneck in getting the preparations compounded, identifying the concentrations of the ingredients, methods of determining the expiration dates, tracking off of stock, and cumbersome record-keeping requirements for compounding IV fluids for immediate use. At the July meeting, the subcommittee proposed and the MDC adopted a legislative proposal for the board to consider today to amend the code section 4826.5 to allow assistant controlled substance permit holders to be able to compound drug preparations under the direct supervision of a licensee. This will address the workforce issue at the hospitals in getting these preparations compounded. A representative of the California Registered Veterinary Technicians Association expressed shock and outrage at this recommendation and stated that the permit holders should not be able to compound drug preparations because they have no qualifications other than having passed a criminal background check. The MD chair clarified that the ultimate responsibility of the compounding procedure lies with the veterinarian to teach both the RVT and the permit holder to do the compounding procedure properly. It is the veterinarian that determines the competency of both the RVT and the permit holder to do this task correctly. After discussion, the MDC unanimously approved the motion, and you have that legislative package in front of you today for consideration.
Thank you. On this particular, we'll take these one by one, I take it. Any members of the board have questions for Dr. Sullivan on this part of his report? And it's all there with the regulatory language here as well. I mean, the legislative language, sorry. I'm looking, I do not see any questions from anyone. I'd like to get a motion from the committee to, if so inclined, to approve this legislative language.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
Is there a microphone on?
Is there a little green right here at the base?
Is it on now?
Now it is.
Hello. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the legislative proposal to amend DPC section 4826.5 to authorize a veterinary assistance controlled substance permit holder to perform drug compounding.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Excuse me, before we move to a vote, I'd like to hear if there's any public comment in the room on this first and foremost, and then we'll move to the online folks. I do not see any public comment from our room, so moderator, do you mind opening?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And hearing no further comments from the board, I think we can go to a vote.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Mr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Ms. Ferber?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Sullivan.
All right. Agenda item 5B. I'm going to give a brief summary of this agenda item because it is huge and it's complicated. I trust that everybody has read and understands the background and the essence of this issue. Over the course of several years, the MDC and the board worked on several regulations about education and work experiences for RVT students. These regulations dealt with AVMA accreditation programs and alternate route programs. At some point, the various regulatory proposals were combined into one large package. They proceeded through the regulatory process, and the package was approved by agency with publication of the rulemaking with OAL for a 45-day public comment period. In July 2020, our executive officer determined that some of the regulations were a significant barrier to licensees without offering any additional consumer protection, and she recommended removing those restrictions. The board approved those amendments. Our present subcommittee that is reviewing the entire package has found that the package needs to be reviewed because of issues with duplication of oversight by AVMA accredited programs and costs related to the rest of the package. However, there are components of the package that the subcommittee feels should continue, and they are CCR Title 16, Article 4, Sections 2036.1, which allows for RVT students to, and I'm quoting, be exempt from registration by the board while performing animal health care tasks pursuant to Section 2036 as part of their studies, unquote. And in Article 6, Section 2068.5, amending those regs to remove the restrictions on the time to complete their educational requirements and the time to complete their on-the-job work experiences, both of which are barriers to students completing these requirements without any additional consumer protection. Both the original package and the new proposed amended regulation package are in your packet. You are now asked to consider MDC's recommendation to remove CCR Title 16 Sections 2064, 2065, 2065.1, 2065.2, 2065.6, 2065.7, 2068.8, and 2066 from the pending regulation package and move forward sections 2036.1 and 2068.5 regarding RVT student tasks and equivalent experience and education. You are also asked to consider adopting the regulation unit's proposed modifications to the language in section 2036.1 and 2068.5, which are highlighted in yellow and whose explanations are listed on page 3 and 4 of the packet. I think I got the gist of it, so Jessica and Tara might want to clarify anything that I've missed.
Nope, that was very well done. I would just ask, though, for Karen Halbo, our regulation unit attorney, to go over the concerns from the regulation unit regarding the language that the board has already approved and been through agency.
Okay, is this on? Yes. The regulation unit wanted to bring before the board a number of issues. At the time that this language was passed, the Office of Administrative Law was not scrutinizing potentially vague language as closely as they are now. And the package has some issues that we would like to have the board consider and address. In your package, I've got listed some general concerns and specific concerns, and it is focused on paragraph B, which the previously approved language states, as used herein, students in their final year of a board-approved veterinary technology program are those individuals who, in the opinion of instructors, have knowledge and familiarity with RVT animal healthcare tasks and have completed a sufficient portion of the classroom and clinical instruction set forth in subsections A1 and A2 of section 2065 or subsection B of section 2065.1. You'll notice yellow highlighted, recommending striking out or subsection B of section 2065.1 because that is a part of the larger package which will be dealt with later, so it doesn't exist right now, and we don't wish to have a regulation going through citing to something that doesn't exist. Then the next thing comes in this language. When you say in the opinion of instructors, the term instructors is not defined. Are they instructors in the student's program? How many instructors? How is the opinion documented? When and how is the student informed of the documentation? When and how is the supervising veterinarian, or RVT, where they're going to do this work, informed of the determination that in the opinion of the instructors, the student is sufficiently educated? And then can the student appeal if they're determined to not be ready? Who decides the appeal? How is the determination documented? Who tells the result of the appeal to the supervising veterinarian or RVT? The greater scrutiny that is received by regulatory text needed these questions to be answered. There is also in here, they're saying the opinion is that they have sufficient portion of their classroom and clinical instruction to be able to do these tasks. And when a term like sufficient is used, we now need to set out what the criteria is. So the yellow highlighted language that you see is the attempt of the regulation unit to move forward with this consumer protection of having someone review the student before they're laying hands on animals and doing these tasks, even under supervision, that they're appropriate. So the first change is we had in the opinion of a program instructor singular. You need one instructor to look over and evaluate the student. Then we put in or the program director. As you'll see later, if there's an appeal, who would solve that? Who would be there? And then we put at the end of the first sentence, to be able to safely perform RVT animal healthcare tasks. That being the criteria. What is sufficient? Enough that they're safe. That seemed like that was what it was trying to do. But without the engagement of the board, I couldn't tell. But I've drafted this language and changes are welcome. The next under number 1, stating, okay, upon making the determination, the program instructor or the program director, whoever makes the determination, shall note their opinion in the student's academic file and shall inform the student of their opinion within 10 days. There's your documentation, and it's not a set document that has to be they make a notation in their academic file. And if the students don't have access to their academic file, we've added the shall inform the student of their opinion within 10 days. I presume this is near the start of the semester or near the end of the previous year that programs will take a look at their students. You may have a student on academic probation or a student who actually has disciplinary actions that make one concerned. This would be something the instructor could take into account. Then number 2, again, it's just answering those questions. Before performing any animal RVT healthcare tasks, the student must inform
the supervising veterinarian in their clinical program that the student has been determined safe to perform RVT animal health care tasks and who made that determination. So when they are assigned somewhere, they would tell their supervising veterinarian, my teacher, Mr. So-and-so, made the determination. And that way, the veterinarian has the information. It's trying to make a loop between the students and the veterinarians and the school so that we are protecting animals, but without adding a bunch of paperwork and putting the burden on the student to inform their veterinarian. Number 3, a student found not prepared to safely perform RVT animal health care tasks can appeal by submitting a written request for review of the determination to the program director, who shall decide the appeal within 60 days of receiving the request. It seemed all these programs would have a director. One would hope it would be rare that such a determination would be made, but that is something I think a director should be able to step in and evaluate and make a determination. We needed to say how long they have. Since this is at their final year, you don't want it to go too long or they won't be able to get the hours required. Then for number 4, a student shall not participate in the clinical program of their final year of study until determined by a program instructor or the program director to be safe to perform animal RVT healthcare tasks. And all of this safe to perform, it's under the supervision of the veterinarian. There were questions written into the memo for the board you might not have gotten a look at, which was general concerns that this allows students to perform these top job tasks under the immediate supervision of a veterinarian or an RVT. And the language of Business and Professions Code 4841.1 says they can perform these tasks under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian in good standing. And I'm presuming it's because the RVT is also being supervised, that the veterinarian is doing an indirect supervision. But I wanted to make sure I understood that this was within the board's authority to do, and then also asking, was this the goal of that language originally, to add this consumer protection layer? And it's my understanding that the board council also has a few tweaks to the language, so I would like to invite Tara to add her improvements.
With respect to the question as to whether the board has authority to assign supervision to an RVT under Business and Professions Code Section 4841.1, the best I can do is point to subdivision B, which authorizes the board to promulgate regulations to assign the level of supervision necessary. The fact that 4841.1 subdivision A discusses supervision by a veterinarian, it's unclear whether that's indirect or direct. So I think that the regulation, the proposed regulation, could satisfy the veterinarian supervision in terms of the 2 levels that the regulation sets out. And so far as an RVT could be providing that immediate supervision, and then the veterinarian is directly supervising the RVT. I don't know that OAL would find that sufficient. I think it's potentially worth trying, or it's potentially worth specifying that the veterinarian is indirectly supervising the student. So you've got the indirect supervision by the veterinarian of the student, and then, so that would satisfy subdivision A, that the veterinarian has to be supervising, and then the RVT is performing that immediate supervision, and they are directly supervised by the veterinarian. So that's a suggestion to address the concerns with the authority in 4841.1. I had a couple minor tweaks for your consideration and one question. Okay, so I think I'm on page 18 of the attachment 2 to agenda item 5B, CCR section 2036.1. In the title, it currently says Animal Healthcare Task for Registered Veterinary Technician, paren RVT, close paren students. Because CCR section 2034 subsection B already defines the term RVT to mean a registered veterinary technician, and section 2036 uses RVT with periods in between in the title, I would, for conformity, recommend that in the title of 2036.1, the term registered veterinary technician, open paren, RVT, close paren, be removed and replaced with R period V period T period. In 2036.1 subsection A, line 3, it says animal health care tasks pursuant to section 2036. 2036 lays out the list of varying animal health care tasks that RVT can perform under different levels of veterinarian supervision. What I've noticed in the rest of the section is that it uses the term RVT, animal health care tasks. So I would recommend that we just insert in line 3 between performing an animal the term R period V period T period to better clarify that these are the RVT animal health care tasks pursuant to section 2036. So the other references of RVT animal health care tasks makes a bit more sense. Subsection B, paragraph 1, last line on that page, 18, it says, inform the student of their opinion within 10 days. I'm not really sure what the 10 days starts from. Is it upon making the determination, or is it upon noting the opinion in the student's academic file, which may be the same day, but it may not be? So perhaps maybe we need just a couple more words to clarify what the 10 days means. Is it 10 days of the determination, or 10 days of documenting the determination in the student file? On page 19, 2036.1, subsection B, paragraph 2, first line, it says before performing any animal RVT healthcare task, I would recommend moving the term animal to lie behind RVT, so it would be RVT animal healthcare tasks, which would be consistent with the other uses of that term. I would also note globally that the term RVT needs to be changed to R period V period T period. Also, 2036.1, subsection B, paragraph 4, last line, perform animal RVT healthcare tasks. Again, the minor change to move animal to fall behind RVT, so it would read perform RVT animal healthcare tasks for consistency. That's it.
Thank you, Tara. I think all of those are good amendments, and I did not discuss that in the package for 2068.5, under subdivision H, we are asking that you strike out entirely the time limit information that's referring to 2065.1, because again, that is in the larger package and at the present time does not exist. So we need to remove that from this rulemaking and 2068.5H.
Okay. Dr. I'm confused. Did you guys discuss this yesterday at the MDC meeting?
No, it was our meeting before.
It was, okay, sorry about that, okay.
Yeah, we're moving this forward for your consideration to adopt today.
But MDC reviewed the new changes that are just in yellow highlight and
No.
agrees with those changes?
No, we did not have that discussion. This was not the changes that are being proposed were not presented to us at the time.
The reg unit, okay. That's what I'm a little confused about, because I don't know how everybody else is, but some of the questions and answers that Ms. Halbo provided may make sense, but they may not make sense, and I just don't know. Particularly when we're opining about what a program will do, RVT program. So I'm not sure if these are appropriate or not, honestly. So that's why I'm asking you and maybe the fellow board members. I'm not sure. Whatever we do today, I guess we need to have it posted again with the changes that were just made. I'm more comfortable seeing all the little edits that were just done by Tara. But I want to make sure. I know that once we do this, it will go into public comment, things like that, and there'll be time for people to opine on this. It's just that it seems like it's coming at us with these changes without a lot of deliberation. That's just my feeling as a public member. So I'll turn it to any other board members who may have similar questions. Oh, Tara.
I've got another concern in 2036.1 subsection B, paragraph 3, second line. This establishes the student's appeal right, but it's unclear how long the student has to appeal. So there's a determination the instructor or director has to issue and has to inform the student within 10 days of something. Then the student can appeal, but, does that mean they've got 30 days? Is it 6 months? I don't know. That might need to be defined or at least discussed whether or not that needs a deadline. That's all.
I just have a concern that those kind of go beyond the scope of the statute itself, because the statute itself just says that we're adopting regulations define the parameters of supervision. This whole appeal rights of their determination, who's making that determination, to me, that'd be on the schools to decide, and I'm just concerned it's going beyond the scope of what the intention of the statute was.
Dr. Bradbury.
I would have to agree with Jessica on this. I'm looking at all of these thinking this seems really extensive in an educational program and very specific in some of it, and I didn't notice the time of appeal and not specific in others. And then, in the I guess it wouldn't be that important if we're not moving forward with this, but like in B2 on page 19, the top of page 19, it says that the student must inform the supervising veterinarian, and Ms. Halbo said that would put that on the student, but then who is actually responsible ultimately if the student is not truthful, or if the student doesn't inform the supervising veterinarian? It seems, all of this seems just a little bit, just a lot to put onto this. So I have the same concerns. And then at the end, this is a different thing that I was looking at and didn't notice when we talked about it on the MDC. So let's see here. It is 2068.5. Got to go up. A, B. So it's F at the bottom of page 20. The directed clinical practice shall consist of at least 4,416 hours of directed clinical practice under the direct supervision of a California licensed veterinarian who shall attest to the completion of that experience. And when I read that, I was like, it kind of looks like it has to be one veterinarian. I don't think that's the intent of this, but I didn't know if we wanted to change the verbiage there to something like under the direct supervision of a veterinarian or veterinarians licensed in California, just to be clear. And that was all I had.
I'm sorry, could I interrupt and ask you to give me the page on that, Christine? I've lost that, the last.
Sure, no problem. It's page 20, and it is the last paragraph, subsection F. Do you want me to read it again? Like what my concern was, or?
No, I found it. I just, the G and the F kind of got
yeah.
there for me.
Okay.
Tara.
Page 20, this is a discussion on 2068.5, subsection new F. Currently, this is subsection G, and currently it authorizes direct supervision of a California licensed veterinarian. I would just note that it doesn't say one California licensed veterinarian, so potentially the student could use multiple California. Okay.
Okay.
So I'd also want to point out that in 2036.1B, you know, the new appeal rights and, you know, notification, that's really Ms. Halbo's attempt to better define what is the sufficient portion of classroom and clinical instructions completed by the student in their final year to make them safe to practice. So if there was a better way to define what is a sufficient portion of classroom and clinical instruction, perhaps, you know, the determination of their ability to safely perform RVT animal health care tasks would be unnecessary.
We had a long discussion over that part to how to define that, and went back and forth, and this is what we ended up with. I don't know how you define it other than it being a person's responsibility to make that decision.
Because I guess I would note that under any other circumstance for an unregistered, unlicensed individual who is effectively a veterinary assistant, they can only do, they can't do RVT tasks, but they can only do animal health care tasks that the veterinarian has determined are appropriate for that individual to do. So, you know, I don't know if, is that appropriate? Leaving it up to, as usual, for any, you know, if the student walked in off the street, they wouldn't be able to perform RVT tasks without RVT registration. That's the whole purpose of this section. But typically, the supervising veterinarian makes the decision as to their ability.
Jennifer, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. One, Dr. Bradbury did mention something that wasn't a big deal if we weren't moving it forward. The action requested today is to approve the language to move it forward. I was aware that the OAL was going to be a little more strict with the language. I just wasn't expecting so much of so many edits. A couple things. One, it's the section 2036.1, where it says it would allow students to perform RVT job tasks under the immediate supervision of a veterinarian or RVT. Whether or not that's in there, that's what's happening. So my one concern is when we are asking students to go and communicate with the supervising veterinarian to let the veterinarian know what their level is. In most of these settings, the there's one veterinarian with multiple RVTs, and the students may not even speak to the veterinarian. They are there. It is direct supervision because they're on the property, but the immediate supervision is being performed by the RVT. So I did hear Ms. Halbo's comment about adding a layer of consumer protection, but we also don't want to do that at the cost of adding another barrier to licensure. And I foresee that if we put this much of a burden on these veterinarians, that we might start to see some issues. So I don't want to send this back to MDC, but I do have some concerns. So nobody knows this language better than Carvta. So when we get to public comment, I'm curious to hear their opinion.
Thank you, Jennifer, and I was going to ask you for your opinion on this too, so I appreciate this. Dr. Nolan.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Ms. Harbo and the OAL for actually being more, scrutinizing more the language. I really appreciate that effort. I do, though, feel that it's becoming really prescriptive, and I think the bottom line is that final year RVT students need practice. And the other final word, in my opinion, is that the supervising veterinarian is ultimately responsible, not the instructors or the program director. It's the veterinarian that is supervising this clinical work. So I like the wording of safe, but I think it ought to fall on the supervising veterinarian and maybe very simply say a student that is successfully completed 3 or the first years of education. Is that me or somebody else? Oh, there we go. So a student that is in their final year of an approved program can perform these tasks if deemed safe by the supervising veterinarian. I mean, is there a way we can make it much more simple? Because I think ultimately that's where the responsibility lies anyway.
This is a moderate. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think we can hear you. I think Jessica's talking and I can't hear her, so.
Yes, I moderated headquarters because of the background noise is interfering, so they'll need to unmute themselves.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did they say yes?
Yeah, so Jessica, I think you have to start all
Okay,
over.
so I just wanted to clarify, these edits did not come from OAL. They came from the DCA regulation unit in an attempt to foresee what concerns would be from OAL. So we haven't sent them to OAL yet, so there could be more concerns or no concerns from OAL. So I just wanted to clarify, because it's been said a few times that this came from OAL, and it hasn't. So just wanted to clarify.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, Ms. Halbo.
As I have in the board memo under general concerns and questions, explaining it's a discretionary decision, they want either the criteria to be applied or they say adopt a bright line standard. So perhaps the board wishes to say they have successfully completed up to their 3rd year of, or however many years it is, of training and education and are not on academic probation or have no disciplinary actions. If there's a bright line the board wants, use that. They want that. I just, in this discussion with the executive officer, to have me just say, well, sufficient isn't clear, doesn't move you forward. So I'm trying to give you, these are the many questions we've gotten over the last few years from OAL on something that I just, in my previous 2015 working on regulations, never got asked. So you can find regulations who use terms like sufficient, and it's just different now. So it was trying to give you specificity to move forward, but it sounded like there's something of, well, if we just say they've passed these classes, that's the bright line standard.
Yeah, that, in my opinion, that seems to be a cleaner approach than some of the language that's here, but I'm not an RVT student or a RVT school, and I'm looking to Jennifer and other folks, before we move anything forward, we should try and get a consensus here, it seems to me. And I know we're going to open this to public comment. Are there other changes that either of you have? Okay. Do we have any other comments from the board before we open this language up? I see none. Do we need to do a motion before public comment? I'm not even sure.
Well, you might want to get some feedback first
Yeah,
from individuals based on this conversation. But to Karen, to your point, so then would you say that if we just define what sufficient portion is in there, and we could take out everything else that was added?
So you would say, and have completed 2 years of the classroom and clinical instruction? You still have as written, you have that it's in the opinion of instructors. From where? I mean, I think at least program instructors brings us to the school you're in. And if they render that opinion, they're still evaluating their knowledge and familiarity. There's still discretion there. I think it's better, but it could still be questioned as to what's the criteria they will apply to make this discretionary determination.
It says in the very first line that it's in their final year of a board-approved veterinary technology program, and that is the definition of them having completed the program to the point that they're in their final year. So I guess, to me, it's already defined in there.
To that point, what if we just struck and have completed a sufficient portion of the classroom and leave clinical instruction? Because if you already are saying the final year, they've already completed up until that point, so do you need that part at all?
And Dr. Sullivan's got to.
Yeah, the reason that wording is there is that it was our impression that these programs varied very dramatically from one group to another. So at the beginning of the last year, a student may have great experience in one section but not in another. So we felt that there needed to be some approval that that student entering their last year, whatever the program is sufficient in those tasks that they're going to be doing, but may not be sufficient in all tasks. So that's why, as I remember it, that's why that was put in there.
I would just point out that subsection B is a definition of the phrase that is in subsection A, students in their final year. So really, perhaps all of this needs to just be focused on students in their final year, students who have completed, items 5 through 7 of 2065 A1 and A2. If you look at B, that says sufficient portion of the classroom and clinical instruction set forth in subsections A1 and A2 of section 2065. 2065 is in our packets here. It's in attachment 1.
Was that removed?
These are the minimum requirements for approved schools or degree programs. So here it is. Yeah. I would say that, actually, I think that might need to be changed to 2065.1, which is minimum requirements for practical experience in education, because this really sets out the education shall consist of a minimum of 20 semester units, and it lays out all of the different kinds of topics that have to be covered. So perhaps it would be better in A, subsection A, to actually set not final year, but the student has completed,
you know, these classes, these requirements. Once they complete those, that's your final defined scope there, and then they can go and do their RVT tasks without, you know, the whole point here is that they don't need RVT registration to get experience. So, you know, maybe all we need to do is just define the courses they have to complete, and they can complete those in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but as long as they complete those courses that, you know, we believe are important to be taken before performing RVT animal healthcare tests, maybe we get around having to do an entire new section B here. We can just focus it on A. And then, you know, the supervision, you know, maybe you want to, if that's already in 1 and 2, maybe the supervision is a problem, but we could discuss that later, but we don't have to keep going around with subsection B because that's just a definition. But it really seems like, because, you know, we've got a couple different ways that we could go with this, maybe the board wants to send this back to the MDC for further review.
I see, Maria, I see your hand up. Sorry, I didn't get to you before.
That's okay. I actually agree with those comments. I mean, when I think of this, if there's a baseline of education that the RVTs need to gain their clinical experience, I agree that that baseline should be called out. And if it's A that you know, that we rely on, I think that makes sense. And then inherent in, and I welcome anybody who's teaching, but it seems to me that you have to trust the teachers to, you know, grade your students as they go along, and presumably by the time they've completed all of those courses, they are prepared. That's an inherent assumption. So I would say that, you know, it is to the teacher's discretion, and I'm not sure that you need to add on another layer of program director. I don't know. I just, it seems like if we call out like specific courses, and rely on the expertise of our instructors to make sure that our RVTs are well equipped to perform the tasks, I think that makes sense, but I welcome feedback on that.
Thank you. Jessica, you're moving to the mic. Yeah.
So if the board wants to send this back to the MDC, then I would ask at the very least that you consider sending the amendments in 2068.5, striking the expiration of the practical experience in education forward. I feel like that is a disservice to the applicants, and with the access to care issues, I think that we have applicants who are hindered by this right now. And so I think I feel as strongly as I did in 2018 when I proposed this, that we need to move this part at the very least forward.
Do not disagree with that. And I know we could separate that out. Dr. Bradbury.
I just wanted to ask Jennifer if the students in their last year, are they typically finished with all of the didactic courses that are listed in there, or is this, or are they continuing on with those while they're getting their hands-on training?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the program. There is quite a variation between programs, and pre-COVID, I would have given you a different answer, but at this point, every program is playing catch up and trying to schedule surgeons when they can and catch up with everything. And I know a big problem that I'm seeing now is even if they complete a course, if they have symptoms of an upper respiratory infection, they can't come to class. So they could miss several classes and then try to make that up at the end. Again, each program is different. So this is one of the reasons my blood pressure is skyrocketing reading this. It's, I'd give you a very different answer today than I would have 3 years ago. So sorry, that's the best I have.
No, that's good. Actually, I'd like to see if Carvda, who's sitting here in the room, various representatives might come up and participate in this part of the discussion before waiting to public comment, because we look to you for opinions on this. Yes, as an expert. And those mics may or may not be on, so just make sure the green light's on. Thank you, Nancy.
My opinion, this is not Carpenter's opinion because we haven't discussed this, but my opinion is that this is way too complicated, and it's going to be a real put-off to the schools. And I'm not sure that it's so necessary, all this verbiage. I agree with Jessica that we need to move forward with the eliminating the 5 years, and perhaps this needs to go back to the MDC to work on, to try to simplify it, to get to the point, but as simple as possible, because I think the schools are going to be tearing their hair out when they see all these regulations.
Were you, could I just ask a question? Prior to the reg units additions, were you comfortable with the language that was there before regarding supervision and RVT animal tasks? I know, separate from the changing the experience, you know, whatever that.
Yes, well, I still think it's rather complicated, and I'm not sure that the schools need this much instruction about how to do their job.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, have you seen problems? I mean, I presume that schools have been allowing students to do RVT job tasks before. All these regulations have been proposed, and have we been seeing problems with that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Any other members of the board have questions? I think before we open to the public, should we just cut to the chase and divide these right now? Because, and maybe put a motion on for the second part, which is, I'm trying to find that code. Wait a minute. Is that 2036.1, and which one is it?
Yeah,
That's
so
what you're going to have to call it out.
on page 4, it's in the first paragraph, you would essentially add 2036.1 to that first list and say that first to pull it out of this rulemaking to go back to the MDC, but still move forward with 2068.5. So the
second paragraph, and you would just say proposed modifications in 2068.5.
So first paragraph in after action requested. So it would be a motion to remove the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations CCR Title 16, sections 2036.1, 2064, 2065, 2065.1, 2065.2, 2065.6, 2065.7, 2065.8, and 2066 from the pending rulemaking regulatory proposal, and only move forward with the proposed amendments to CCR Section 16, Title 16, Section 2068.5 regarding RVT student tasks and equivalent experience in education.
And just strike that 2036.
Right, regarding equivalent experience in education, because RVT student tasks are being taken out. That would be the motion.
Do we have a motion?
So moved. It's Jennifer.
Seconded. Thank you. Now I think we'll move to public comment on this unique motion that's on the floor, and I'm looking at the room. We have no one in the room, so moderator, would you mind opening up to those online? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. I'll quickly make Tim the co-moderator so he can display the instructions. And if anyone would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jessica, would you like to call a roll? I mean, vote.
Ms. Buller?
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Ms. Berber?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're to the other portion of this, which I believe probably, given all the changes in the discussion, that we are more inclined to move back to the MDC for further review. But I'm looking around at the board for,
Yeah, I don't think you need any kind of motion because the MDC is already looking at the rest of the rulemaking package and reassessing that entire thing, so that would just be part of what they continue to reassess.
oh, okay, so yes, all right, thank you. And I am persuaded by, it seems like some of this stuff is more prescriptive than we should be doing, and maybe it's too intrusive, so hopefully the MDC will figure out a cleaner way to do this where we're not imposing policies and.
Well, and perhaps what could be done is the MDC looks at a legislative proposal to make it so the regulations are not necessary, to define immediate supervision, direct supervision, or indirect, if there's a better way to do it that way. Because I think that with the statute itself not saying the level of supervision, there might be just a cleaner way to do it in statute and faster.
All right, okay, thank you. Tara?
And the statute itself is what's creating this final year of study problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think, maybe statutory amendments would be better to address this, because we're, really struggling with how do you define the final year of study. So, but I do want to note that I think you do need a second motion, because now you've got 2068.5, you want to move forward, and so the board needs to adopt it and then direct you to take all steps necessary to initiate it, blah, blah, blah. So, am I incorrect? Because
We need the motion to approve it.
To separate.
But do we have to have that language?
Move forward, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you need a motion
So it's,
to adopt the proposed modifications to CCR section 2068.5.
Yep.
2068,
So now we're on the second paragraph.
yeah. For just 2068.5, is that
Yeah.
correct? We're striking, okay.
Okay, so it would say, I would motion to adopt the proposed modifications to the language in the proposed RVT equivalent experience in education rulemaking package.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
How about I read what it should be,
That would
and then you can maybe move the language. All right, so the motion should be move to adopt the proposed modifications to California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2068.5, regarding equivalent experience in education, and direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the rulemaking package, notice the proposed text for a 45-day comment period, and if no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, adopt the proposed regulatory changes as modified.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Was that Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion from the board before I open it to public comment? I do not see any hands. All right. Dick, you have no board comments? Just checking. So opening it to public comment for those in the room. We may have someone. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Going the wrong direction. Moderator, would you please open it up to the virtual
Of course.
folks? Thank you.
Thank you. So the Q&A panel is now available. If anyone would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand or displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so, and then we don't need anything else for the rest of it, goes back to MDC. Oh, there is something else.
Ms. Bullard?
Oh, the vote, yeah, sorry, I'm so confused. Aye.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Noland?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Ms. Berber?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to Dr. Sullivan.
Okay, agenda item 5C is a summary of yesterday's meeting. Please interrupt me as I go through each agenda item. If you have any questions, we don't need to wait till the end. During the past month, Dr. Payton sent me a text notifying me that she was resigning from the MDC because of her workload at the university and looking after the health of family members. We thanked Dr. Payton for her contributions to the MDC. We greatly appreciated her perspective and contributions to the committee. Agenda item 4 was a presentation by CDFA about AB 1282, which is the Animal Blood Bank bill. The bill required CDFA to make an animal blood bank guidance resource document. They presented that to the MDC yesterday for our consideration and input. It was a very comprehensive document that was well researched and written. Since Dr. Bradbury has some research in this area, she was well versed on the subject and had great input on the topic. Our oversight with this law is that community blood banks can only function within a veterinary premises, and therefore it falls within the practice of veterinary medicine. Agenda item 5 was an update from the Equine Practice Subcommittee. Marie gave that report and listed the resources that the subcommittee has reviewed related to this issue. We also had a Zoom meeting with the enforcement staff of the Veterinary Medical Board and on September 27th, the subcommittee met with CVMA in the morning and CHRB in the afternoon. And this past Monday, we met with UC Davis Veterinary Medical School. The process is just beginning, but a couple of things are already becoming apparent. First, our medical record, section 2032.3, is very prescriptive, especially compared to other states and even to other medical professions within our state. And we may have to further define the VCPR to distinguish the difference between patient-centered cases and client-centered cases. Early stages of discussion, and appears to be a huge task, but a very necessary one. Agenda item 6 was discussion and recommendations related to the compounding regulations. I am not going to go into any great detail about this today because we completely changed our approach that was proposed in the packet for yesterday. We have eliminated much of the terminology that we were proposing. We did pass a motion to move proposed regulations to the board for your next meeting, and it will be easier to explain this to you when you have the final package in front of you. Lots of wordsmithing, which is never fun. Great input by members of the public that really turned things around, and I think that the end product is going to work very well. Because without it, we are stuck with U.S. Pharmacopoeia's guidelines, which will be law in California, and it would literally eliminate any form of compounding in a clinical setting. Not that I'm an alarmist, but in reality, you would have to spend a lot of money to get up to speed to be able to do even simple compounding in a practice. Agenda item 7 is amending our guidance document, adding a paragraph to the introduction that recommends, now this is the guidance document for compounding, adding a paragraph in the introduction that recommends that all clients receive information about the compounded medications that is dispensed to them. The information that is required to be provided to the client in section 4829.5, we are recommending that it be a written document rather than an oral presentation, because, and that it should include the formula. In case of an accidental overdose or an emergency in which the poison center needs to know the name of the ingredients, their concentrations, and the original quantity of the compounded drug preparation at a time when the clinic may not be open. The MDC passed the amended regs, and you will receive them. I don't know if they're regs or if it's just part of the educational document. So that'll be coming forward to you next meeting also. Agenda item 8 was an update on the complaint process audit subcommittee. This is an ongoing process of the committee, and they updated us on their recent work. The subcommittee continued its finalized case review to improve the board's subject matter expert program. As previously mentioned, retraining and recruiting SMEs has been an important focus of the board and staff. The board staff, and unfortunately, many cases are awaiting SME review. Board staff has been able to recruit an additional 11 SMEs to assist the enforcement team since July, bringing the total pool to 35, with, I believe, 3 more in the process of applying. I can tell you personally, there's no arm twisting in this job. The subcommittee created some veterinary-specific scenarios for training following the California Medical Board example, and the subcommittee is waiting for feedback from the SMEs on their work. The subcommittee has also compiled a reference list as a resource for the SMEs, and the subcommittee will be presenting possible amendments at our next meeting to 4875.3B, which is the criteria for being an SME. Agenda item 9 is an update from the inspection subcommittee. The MDC approved a motion to recommend to the board that it direct the inspection subcommittee to monitor the progress of the inspection enforcement units merger and other procedural changes that have been implemented. So this the board has approved, and we're in that 12-month process of evaluating these changes. Then the MDC was updated on a number of inspections that are being done presently, with considerable discussion afterwards, including recruiting and retention of inspectors. It was also noted that our executive officer has done considerable work to obtain a grant to fund the development of a mobile app to facilitate hospital inspections, and it looks to me like the money has been granted for that development. That's fabulous. We then had an extensive discussion related to a session held at AVSB, presented by the North Carolina Board, on how they presently do inspections. All of their routine inspections now are done by appointments, which they found is much less stressful at the inspection site, more organized when they get there, a real education experience, and they found, surprisingly, that they were having the same number of corrections reported compared to the unannounced inspections that they were doing before the pandemic. So we're going to look at that a lot more seriously. I really think that makes it truly an education experience rather than a gotcha experience. Agenda item 10 was an update on the board's access to care and what was being assigned to the MDC. I gave a report to the MDC about a Zoom meeting that I had with Dr. Nolan and Jessica on September 6th, discussing what the MDC needed to do on this project. The following are some of the tasks that we will be doing. Number 1, looking at regulatory policies that may be forcing the veterinarians to think that the gold standard is the only level that they can practice, which many clients cannot afford. This includes defining what spectrum of care is and how to safely practice it without running into problems with the Practice Act. It may also include developing protocols for wellness exams that an RVT may do under supervision. Number 2, the Veterinary Medical Board develop outreach programs to the profession about how to use spectrum of care and how to record it properly in the medical records. 3, develop Q&As to put on the Veterinary Medical Board's website to explain this issue. Again, another outreach program. Number 4, to make sure that this understanding of the spectrum of care is part of the training of the expert witnesses. And number 5, review our regulations to see if there are other areas that may make spectrum of care easier, such as looking at CCR 2032.3 record keeping. As stated in many venues, that this section of our Practice Act is very prescriptive compared to regulations in other states and regulations of other medical professions in our state. We have asked CVMA to make a formal proposal for their RVT Wellness Appointments program at our January meeting. At the end of the meeting, elections were held, and Leah Schufelt was elected chair, and Dick Sullivan was elected vice chair. Never a dull moment at the MDC. Any questions?
Thank you. Let me turn to the board members for any questions on Dr. Sullivan's, the rest of his report. Looking, Diana, Christina. Thank you. I'm very pleased. I just want to say pleased with the progress and the meetings that you've done already, research and information gathering on the equine issue. And you did have your meeting with UC Davis last week or so. Okay. Yeah. So we'll be very interested to see what the MDC comes back with. And I know you have more meetings scheduled, but I was happy to see all that. On the inspections, this is a question possibly for Tara. If we were to move towards, and we'll have more discussion, and the MDC will discuss it, to a what do you call it, appointment situation, would we need a regulation change or anything for that?
No, that's actually a decision that I can do as part of the day-to-day activities of the board. But because that's such a drastic change, I wanted input from the MDC and the board on that decision to move to scheduling versus the unannounced for routines.
Good. Okay, thank you. And are you asking for discussion on that today, or are you waiting for MDC to come back after they've discussed it more?
I think they've already discussed it. I'm just seeking feedback from anybody who has feedback of the decision to move it to scheduled, at least to try it and see how it goes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd like to ask if any board members. I had a thought on that too. At first, I thought, well, I don't know. The random thing is probably better. But then, even prior to the crisis in workforce and in veterinary clinics, when I would go on the inspections with a couple of our inspectors, who were terrifically professional, polite, and everything else, you could easily see in these situations where they were busy and they didn't have an actual person to help walk you around. It was a struggle for the best run operation to manage an inspection, and that was prior to some of these workforce problems that we're having now. So I honestly think this is maybe a more appropriate time to even talk about this. That's my opinion. So I don't know if other board members have anything. I'm looking at the screen above us too. Okay, maybe I was the only one that had a thought on it. So anyway, go ahead, Dr. Barber.
Yeah, I'm in support of having it be a scheduled or even just an announced, like we'll be there in 24 hours so that people can kind of, plan for it, maybe not specifically scheduled. I know that one of the concerns at the MDC meeting, we talked to Patty, who's in charge of inspections, and she had asked the inspectors, and some of them, they're trying to do these inspections on their free time, and it's hard for them to know maybe specifically when their free time was. So maybe a 24-hour notice or something would be a nice kind of in the middle where it's not a specific schedule and just let them know we are going to be there, and then they can make some arrangements. I think that, you know, our goal really is consumer protection, and we aren't trying to just catch people. And if there's really, you know, significant problems in a clinic, they're not going to be able to just cover them up that easily. So I think, you know, and we're going there to try and help them comply, not, you know, be we're trying to be helpful and educate them. So I think it's a win-win if we do it that way.
Thank you. Tara.
I just wanted to button up potential changes to the law with respect to changing how the board inspects premises. Business and Professions Code Section 4809.7 provides for the regular inspection program that by statute will provide for random, unannounced inspections. However, the statute also says, and the board shall inspect at least 20% of veterinary premises on an annual basis. That's at 20%, but that 20% is not tied to unannounced inspections. So separately, 4809.5 says the board may at any time inspect. It doesn't, the statutes don't require unannounced inspections, but the board does have to have a program for unannounced inspections. So it looks to me like with these two statutes, you could do either appointment-based inspections or unannounced.
Thank you very much. I would ask also, and I know the dialogue was very good, I thought, yesterday at the MDC, a lot of opinions, and the other elements of the North Carolina process. And granted, they have 1,400 premises in the state or something like that, but in a tiny, and physically smaller, yes. I wondered about what other health boards do in their inspections, premises inspections, if they do by appointment, they do random, unannounced. I just don't know if, Jessica, you even know that. So.
Well, I think with all the ones that we've talked to, they are unannounced. Okay. And so I think this is, and one of the reasons why I'm bringing it to the board and to the MDC, because I do know that this is going against the norm. But that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the board? Jennifer.
Just wanted to clarify, I'm sure it was already mentioned, but the complaint-driven inspections will still be unannounced. It's only the maintenance inspections.
Right.
That would not.
Right. Yes, that is our understanding. And I see no other questions. So if, excuse me, and that's the completion of your report, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, I should want to open it to public comment as well. I don't think we need a motion. We're not doing a motion to accept anything else on the report, right?
The only thing that I don't think was touched on is the pending MDC assignments for 2023. So that's in your packet, just an FYI. We will add the access to care issues that Dr. Sullivan mentioned today. So just putting that out there, but there's no action needed. Okay,
thank you. So now at this point, I'd like to open it to public comment for the MDC report. And I see no one in the room. So moderator.
Thank you, Madam Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment.
Yeah.
All right. I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, very much. And I, excuse me, I want to apologize. I neglected to introduce Mandy Ayers from UC Davis, our liaison, who's with us today in person. So welcome and thank you very much, our student liaison. And we'll be hearing from her later in the program. All right, now where are we? Where's my? Oops, I changed my deal here. So, and we're getting close. We are going to break at noon for lunch. But rather than take a little break, bio break now, let's just power through if we can, if everybody's okay with that. Oh, yeah. So Dr. Sullivan, don't leave the room, because now we're moving to item 6, which is, excuse me, the discussion on our national organizations. And, gosh, I'm sorry. The first is the AAVSB conference, the annual conference, which I have to say, and I will say, and Jessica will go into more detail, and Dr. Sullivan as well, on his AAVSB policy and regulatory task force is just next. But as you all know, in July we discussed that we were not going to be able to attend the conference because of the state it was in. However, much to our surprise, about 2 weeks before the conference was due to start, Jessica got word that there was a waiver possibility with requiring a lot of paperwork and explanation about why it was useful and necessary and didn't cost the state money, et cetera, et cetera. So she immediately reached out to myself and Dr. Bradbury to see if we could go. Unfortunately, my schedule was totally locked in 2 weeks before, and I could not change things around. However, she and Dr. Sullivan were able to make a successful application to the powers that be. And although they didn't find out until like a few minutes before they had to leave for the airport the day before, they were not approved until the day before, they literally jumped on the planes, a day of, and jumped on the planes and represented California quite successfully at this conference. So we are really grateful. I was able to attend virtually during the business sessions and vote on the Zoom platform and could speak, but Jessica did a terrific job representing us. And one other thing, I know she'll talk about it in her report when she talks about the bylaw changes and things like that. We were very, very excited that Dr. Mark Nunez, all through Jessica and Dr. Sullivan's advocacy, was elected to the board of directors for AAVSB. So I think this is one of the first times a West Coast veterinarian, person of color, and I might say from a jurisdiction that has more veterinarians, more licensed practitioners than most countries, and certainly than anywhere in North America, is sitting on that board of AAVSB. So we're really excited about those possibilities, and hopefully, and we know Mark, he's going to shake things up and bring a West Coast perspective. So now I'll turn it over to Jessica for the rest of the report on the conference.
Sure. First, I wanted to just extend my thanks to Christine Lowley, Taylor Schick, and Karen Munoz from DCA. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to push this through as quickly as it did. So I really appreciate their assistance in getting this through. I needed to know by 10 to catch my flight, and I got a text at 10:05 from Taylor that it was approved. So I just took my bag and went to the airport. So I really thank them for their assistance in this. So throughout the 5 days that I was there, it was very apparent that the things that we were able to succeed with, we would not have been successful if we were not present. It is very important for us to participate in these conversations. Throughout the 5 days, I had a lot of conversations about our proposed bylaws amendments. The board, as you guys know, the AAVSB board were opposed to a number of those amendments, mainly the ones associated with mandating that they provide a virtual participation option throughout the conference. There was a lot of discussions with a lot of various boards during breaks, during lunches, in the evenings about why these are important. During the actual business session, most of our proposed bylaws amendments were approved, except those related to the virtual meetings were not. But it did get a lot of discussion, I think a lot more discussion than anyone ever anticipated, because normally when the board does not approve it, it just dies there without discussion. So I think we made a lot of headway. I think that it sent a message to the board itself that we expect to be able to participate virtually in these important discussions. So I think that it's not over, but I think we made a lot of good headway while we were there.
Can I just, as someone who was watching at 4:30 in the morning our time, or whatever time it was on the Zoom, I will say also that yes, the discussion was broad. It actually, our bylaw change was narrow in focus and said if pandemic or state issued, law. And that got reversed during the course of the floor discussion to say it should be virtual options at any time. And frankly, as a membership association, they should be have been amenable to that. So it actually went broader than our initial one for the floor vote, but it did take a 2/3, and we weren't able to attain that. But the discussion was really positive, and it's definitely not over, that's for sure.
We got the majority, but not the 2/3. I also discussed with many people regarding the importance of having the AAVSB have West Coast representation. The great thing of that is I had participated in a lot of the interviews of the candidates and asked them about the importance of inclusion for all geographical areas on their board and representation. And then during the business session, the nominating committee actually showed a graph, just the map of representation, and it was very, very apparent that it's all on the East Coast. So it was a really, I think, empowering graphic that the nominating committee put on, because they agreed that we needed to have that West Coast representation. We also supported the executive director from Kentucky, Michelle Shane, to be put onto that board, and they were both appointed. So that was a pretty big win for us. On the first day that I was there, I gave a presentation to all of the executive directors regarding the API that we developed with AAVSB, and that's the data that we transmit to them regarding our license statuses and the discipline imposed. As you all may remember, right now for the veterinary state boards, they're not required to report discipline to any database. And like in the healing arts world, they have the National Practitioners Data Bank that all states, it's a federal law that all state boards report to, so then you are aware of any discipline that happens in other states. Because there's not something here, AAVSB has tried over the last several years to have that database for all the states, but only half of the states are reporting to it. So one of the biggest challenges that the states have said is just the resources and the time it takes to report that discipline, and that's why they haven't been doing it. And so the last couple of years, I've been working with AAVSB to develop this API to have it automatically transfer our system to their system. And it's been successful, and so it was me just reporting to all of them, letting them know how it's working and encouraging them to do this. Because before, just hearing it from AAVSB, they were really skeptical to really do anything. And so it was really great to be in that room to have that conversation, because there was a lot of questions that came up that we just talked through and were able to tell them, really to tell them how good this is for consumer protection and just how necessary it is, plus how easy it is for them. AAVSB is also offering a grant to any states who didn't have maybe the infrastructure and their technology to do. They were offering a grant to help pay for improving their systems. So after that, I was told that they said 7 or 8 boards contacted them after my presentation to join to get the API going. So I'm hoping that with this work with AAVSB and getting the word out, we're going to have a better system, a better national system to know where our licensees are licensed in other states and any discipline that is imposed, that we get that information. So that was that. There was also, I attended the second day, there was a NAVLE deep dive, which the AAVSB usually does every year. I just had not been able to do it historically because I was in a different meeting. They separated the meetings so I can go to both of them. But it was a really great presentation from ICVA regarding the NAVLE and how they come up with questions and their validations of the questions. And we've invited them to come and present to the board at the January meeting. So they'll do that. One thing that I did raise a concern about, or more questions related to the pass rates of the NAVLE. They focus more on how they developed the passing score, but this board has expressed concerns about the pass rates regarding the NAVLE and for the VT&E as well. And so I had asked the psychometrician at who was presenting about if they had any concerns if the pass rate itself was 100% pass rate, or if there was a concern that there was maybe a 20% pass rate, does that raise alarm bells either way? And they had said no. So I explained to them how with us, especially because it's a question that comes up for Sunset every time, if you have an exam that you have 100% pass rate, why do you need it if everybody is showing that they're already competent? Is it a barrier? It's just something to, and so I just wanted to engage them in that conversation. They said that they have a process in place to evaluate pass rates, and it may be a concern if it was a 20% pass rate versus 100%, and they would do certain steps within that. But I think it was a good conversation to have. I am a little concerned about how we're still, when we look at our pass rates for the examination report, it's a lot lower than the national pass rate. And so I've asked to work with ICVA to identify areas of what's causing that lower pass rate compared to their national pass rate. But one thing to keep in mind too, and we can talk more about this either tomorrow or at a later date when ICVA is present, is that we tend to, that pass rate includes all foreign graduates as well, and California compared to the other states tend to attract more foreign graduates, and so that could be what's causing that pass rate to be much lower. So more to come on that. Another thing that I asked ICVA to do is consider posting pass rates by schools on their website. They said that would actually be for AAVMC to do. So then the next day I asked the AAVMC to do that, and they said it would be up to ICVA to do.
Try.
So I'm working with them. I think that they're both, the schools are required to post pass rates on their websites, and so that was one thing that ICVA said to do is we'll just send them to the schools. And I said, well, sure, except when you're looking at students who are trying to see which school is going to better prepare them for the exams, they don't want to go to every single school and try to find out how well the school is doing. It'd be better to have that single place. So we'll be working with both to see who will do it, but they both seem open to it. We also, during the annual conference, there was a presentation from the USDA about their National Veterinary Accreditation Program. They did ask assistance from the state boards to develop any kind of transmission of data, so similar to what we do with AAVSB, to potentially do an interface so they have accurate licensing data from our system. They're having trouble getting that data from the state boards right now. We also got a presentation from the DEA. They talked a lot about what it looks like for them when they do inspections, things to look at when it comes to veterinary premises. And I asked them to join us in creating some continuing education for our licensees. So he was on the West Coast in DC, so he's putting me in touch with the people on the West Coast so we can develop that continuing education for our licensees. There was a presentation on facility standards and more on inspections. This is where I think our voice can really make more of an impact. The presentation was with individuals from Alberta, Canada, Kentucky, and Ohio. Kentucky was just starting an inspection program, and so they were basically interviewing these two other programs, and they were looked at as like the experts in the room of how to do a program. But every time someone came up and had a question on what they do, they hadn't experienced those issues. And so, and because they were a lot smaller, they were a lot newer, I think that a benefit of being on the conference committee is we can really look at who is presenting to present those potential best practices or more kind of tried and true practices. Because it got to the point where I just got up and I told them that we're doing an inspection webinar in November, and we welcome anyone who has questions about what it could look like to come, and to let them know that a lot of the questions that they had, we have already experienced, and so we can maybe help, we can learn from each other.
And a lot of them signed up for the November.
They did, yeah. I think right now we have over 400 registrants for the inspections one. They had two other inspection presentations, one, and it was concurrently, so Dr. Sullivan went to one of them, which was focused on the drug inspections. Another one was on facility inspections, and that's the one that I attended to where the North Carolina board gave their presentation. So we already kind of talked about that. But subsequent to that, I reached out to the executive director from North Carolina. We're going to set up another meeting with their inspectors to kind of, we have a lot more follow-up questions of logistics of how they're able to do certain things to learn from them. So I don't know if you have anything from the drug inspections one that you attended.
And it wasn't very informative. I mean, she was a pharmacist at Auburn Veterinary School, but she just kind of went over DEA regulations. You know, these are the regulations. It was a little boring. It wasn't anything new, let me put it that way. She did a similar shortcut presentation the year before, and it was just expanded.
Yeah. There was on the last day, a presentation, the International Perspective on Telehealth. They had presenters from there was an attorney from Animal and Veterinary Legal Services. There was the executive director from the Nevada Veterinary Medical Board. They had just put into statute that before there was no mention of telemedicine, so they recently had legislation that allowed telemedicine. One thing that was missing in the presentation that I asked for clarification later was how they established a VCPR. And so then she did tell the room that they do require the VCPR to be established in person. So I thought that was interesting because, as we all know, the guidance coming from AAVSB is not that. And then they had Jan Robinson from the College of Veterinary of Ontario, the registrar. She's presented to this board before, just on their perspectives of telehealth. There was also the last day a presentation from one of the AAVSB veterinarians and their attorney regarding changes in regulations. They talked about the FDA's new guidance document, the GFI 256, which is providing guidance for drug compounding. And they did a high level of HISA and the impacts of the state veterinary boards. They are much in the state that I think everybody else is. We're still trying to figure out how this is going to play out and impact the state veterinary boards.
Could you say what HISA is for folks that may not know?
Gosh.
Horse Integrity and Safety Act.
Yes, thank you. And then I got food poisoning and had to leave, but that's my update.
Mine is much shorter. First, I want to give a shout out to AAVSB. Both of us, they gave us airline tickets ahead of time and made reservations for us in case we were going to be able to make it without blinking an eye. They were very, very supportive of getting there. And then a shout out to Mark for getting on the board. It is difficult to get on the board unless you're in their system and really recognized. I think Jessica did a lot of campaigning for him. And the surprise was it came down to the last vote. There's a number of votes. Came down to the last vote, and he beat out an incumbent, which I didn't think he was going to be able to do. So we're real happy. I did have an assignment when I went there. He did request a cap, a hat from the NASCAR, and we did attend the museum there. And so I had some time Sunday morning before I left, and I walked over there, and, you know, they had all kinds of hats. None of them were used, though. I was looking for a used one. But I got this camouflage one that I think would be very appropriate for Mark. So we were hoping that he would be here today that we could present this to him, but I'm going to do it online. And, you know, I think I understand he's getting into the hunting mode, going back to the Midwest there. So it may help for him for that, too. My main work at AAVSB is on their regulatory policy task force. It was the task force that originally made the telemedicine guidelines and paper. And so, you know, they don't particularly like hearing everything that's going on in California because, like Jessica said, issues that come up, we've already dealt with them. And so I have to be as tactful as I can when we discuss these items. But the two big issues that, you know, we need to be there for, one is telemedicine, and they have agreed to do a policy review of their position. This coming year in 2023, we've kind of established, we're able to establish, like AVMA has, all policies should be reviewed every 5 years. Whether they're changed or not, they need to be looked at. So it's an opportunity for us to address some of our concerns again, and we'll be doing that this spring. The other issue is they have been doing a lot of discussion in mid-level practitioner situation. I think it's an opportune time to take advantage of that. I think it's necessary, especially even in large animal medicine. I was on a task force with the subcommittee on this task force looking at what mid-level practitioners could be doing in large animal practice, and so our job was to develop a list that could be considered. The problem is now it's going to move over to another task force with stakeholders, and I'm kind of concerned where that's going to go. I have always, on these discussions, have pushed that the perfect workforce pool are licensed technicians, and I'm not seeing that as where the AAVSB is going. So, and there's also a lot more programs out there. I know that it's very likely that there's going to be some legislation introduced in Arkansas this year to develop a mid-level practitioner for large animal practice, and but that is being proposed by veterinary licensed technicians in Arkansas. So everybody needs to read everything they can on this because you know, where it's going and how it develops could be really good, or it could, you know, everything has to come back to the state to be able to get these things through. So we do have final say, but you know, what I see out there with Lincoln Memorial University and what AVSB is doing, and I think Colorado is going forward, I think they're pushing out there a product that doesn't have a job description yet. And I'm not sure that's a healthy way of doing it. So that's the end of my report. Yeah.
I just have one thing to put on the board's radar regarding this task force that I found out last night from one of the members that attended the meeting, is that they're looking at this idea of term limits for the members serving on this task force. It's currently an ad hoc committee, and I think a minimum is 8 members. They currently have 15 members. This task force, as you all know, were the ones who created the Model Practice Act regarding, and has the telehealth guidelines that the board has a lot of concerns about. What I'm concerned is after that meeting yesterday, it appears they talked about creating term limits, but not for the 10 longstanding members. So they would be grandfathered in, not have term limits, but anybody new would then have term limits. So I think that's a concern. I think that it's something that we should speak with Dr. Nunez about to make sure that it's my understanding that issue is going to go to the board of directors. So to share that concern with him, I think that if you're going to do term limits, you should make term limits for everybody and not necessarily let 10 individuals stay on indefinitely. So.
I'm not sure I would be on that list of 10. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess no one had questions for Dr. Sullivan as he's running away. Okay, thank you. So quickly, the last one on this report, and then we will take public comment and break for lunch, is the ICVA report, and I'll make that short. Just a couple of updates since our July meeting. One, the annual report and the annual report for licensing boards have been distributed. They were distributed at AAVSB, and also all of our board members should have it. It gets sent to every regulatory board. Excuse me. A couple of updates. Just a little factoid. In the 2021 to 2022 through the spring testing cycle, which is how we do it, 7,019 students took the test, which was 5.7% higher than the 20 to 21. So we are actually, which is great, as we all know, there's a critical shortage of veterinarians. What's that? Oh, geez. Okay, fine. Anyway, sorry. And this fall, 5,999 candidates have been scheduled to take the NAVLE through the fall testing window, which is terrific and larger than we've seen before. Even in spite of the traumatic issues associated with COVID and unusual issues, I'm generally happy to report that the passing rates have remained relatively constant. It was 92% in 2021, 90% in 21-22, which is really a tribute to the students and to the academic institutions. We've continued to reach out because of our webinar capabilities and the additions of in-house assessment experts to many, many more colleges to student seminars regarding the NAVLE, those students that are facing the NAVLE, and in our workshop program for vet school faculty to assist them with expanding their methods for assessing vet student performance and determining best practices specific to their institution, students, faculty, and administration. So that continues, which is great. In January, we should have a better report. Our Communication Skills and Assessment Task Force, again, which consists of experts in North America, continues to gather and explore how best to assess the competency of communication skills in entry-level vets while reviewing communication assessment methods that can be implemented to assess these skills in a fair, feasible, reliable, and valid manner. We finally just completed the third of our 3 standard setting meetings. Typically best practice for high stakes exams is at least 1 periodic standard setting meeting, but we end up doing 3 with experts. And that basically, those meetings essentially ensure that the current passing rates still represent the standard of minimal competency for safe and effective entry-level practice. And that's really it on ICVA. We have a meeting in November for the staff to present. We have a number of other assessment projects that are going on, and we're going to present that to the board members. And then our next meeting is in January, right before our meeting here.
I just want to highlight on the screen is ICVA's In Focus newsletter issue for September, where our board president was featured. I think that everybody knows what an asset you are to this board, to California, but also to the entire United States with all of the work that you do as a public member. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you and highlight the fact that you are in their newsletter. You all should have received this newsletter from ICVA. We also provided a link to our examination update, but I encourage you all to check it out.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so if anybody has any questions on my report, I see Jamie.
Well, I just want to mirror what Jessica said and just say congratulations to you and thank you so much. Not only to you, but to Dr. Nunez, to Dr. Sullivan, to Jessica, to Christina, everyone that has worked so hard and to be involved nationally. It's been tremendous, and it's really inspirational to see all of that. So I just thank you all and congratulate you and Mark especially.
Thank you. Well, I think it's very important for California to be super involved with the national, because we all know what they do back there can come back to haunt us here. And we want to be involved in the dialogue since we have such a vast number of practitioners. Okay, I think we can open this to public comment on this last 3 reports, which are the national boards. Nancy?
I'm just concerned that we don't have an RBT on the VT&E committee. I think since we supply the second most candidates for the VT&E of the whole country, except for Canada, that we're entitled to have a seat on that committee. And the average pass rate on the VT&E has been lower than the average pass rate on the California exam was. And I don't know if that's because things have changed or if it has something to do with the type of questions they're asking. So I think it would be really helpful if we tried to get a California representative on the VT&E committee.
That's a good point. Now that we've achieved board dominance, we can go to VT&E. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Board collaboration.
Yeah, all right. All right, I don't see anyone else in the room. Moderator, would you open it up?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so now at the hour of 12:15, I think it's appropriate that we break for lunch. We'll start with the access to care report at 1:15. Is 1:15 an hour for everyone? All right. Okay, thank you. All right, sorry that, so you have, they didn't send that.